thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, there is the potential for benefit to Albertans from our investment in Sturgeon Refinery, but there are also substantial risks. Earlier today in public accounts, I had the opportunity to ask the Department of Energy about one specific risk, and that is the status of the Alberta carbon trunk line. Now, you'll recall that this project is meant to support enhanced oil recovery while sequestering carbon. Unfortunately, we learned that this project still does not have financing and still does not have a start date for construction. To the Minister of Energy, what happens if the Alberta carbon trunk line isn't built by the time the Sturgeon Refinery starts full operations later this year?
The Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Certainly the carbon trunk line is part of that project. We work with the Northwest Upgrader. We're looking forward to the opening of that refinery, and it's going to be a good project for Alberta, and we'll continue to monitor the results as we go forward.
For supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's about the furthest thing from an answer that I've seen in this House in some time, and that's saying something. So, Mr. Speaker, in my risk management days, we used to say that a problem is when a risk becomes a reality. So I'd say the minister, unfortunately, has a problem on her hands. Given that the Alberta carbon trunk line was an integral part of the original business case for Alberta's investment in the Sturgeon Refinery, and given the project not only has it not started, it hasn't even secured financing, to the Minister of Energy one more time, if the refinery is forced to emit carbon instead of capturing it, how much will they pay in carbon tax? And does that affect the return to Albertans from this investment?
Honourable member, you're going to have a second supplemental. Maybe you didn't hear at the beginning. I found a number of preambles in that question. So when you get the next chance, please reduce them. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've been clear. We have two projects right now, the Shell Quest project and certainly the Northwest Upgrader project. We've been clear that we would continue with those. They were both continuing contracts from the previous government. We're looking forward. I can assure the member I'll get you some specifics. I don't have the specifics before me. But we're looking with interest at the costs of carbon capture, but we do know in places like Saskatchewan the cost is about $100 a tonne. We're doing many projects here for far less than that, and that's good for Albertans, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, during estimates, we learned the price of the Sturgeon Refinery has gone up yet another $300 million to $9.7 billion, and may go further over budget. And given that we still don't have a date for full-scale production, and given the likelihood of additional costs from the carbon levy, from delays to the Alberta carbon trunk line, one more time to the Minister of Energy. If the Alberta carbon trunk line is delayed or never built, will that tip the scales for the Sturgeon Refinery from profit to loss?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I promised before, I will get back to the member on that matter. I don't have the facts before me, but I do know that the Northwest Refinery is slowly ramping up. It takes about a year, and so far it's been successful. I've seen examples of low sulfur diesel, which is going to be good for us. And again, we are looking with interest on the two carbon capture projects, and I'll have more to say once I find some more information out.